Hello. Hello, everybody. How are you? Thanks so much. Hello, Shelley. Good to see you. It's so good to see you. How are you? How are you doing this hot week? It's so good to see everybody. Thank you and welcome back. Welcome back. We took last week off, so we've had a bit of a break. I've had a little bit of a break, but I am so glad to be back. I really miss this time of just hanging out and connecting with you folks. Oh, it's good to know. I'm glad you're good, Shelley. Glad you're good. Yeah, this is a special time for me, and I hope that for whoever watches it, whomever watches whenever they watch, that this is special for you as well, and that you find some time to relax and connect. Laura, hello! Oh, so good to see you. Well and fine? You're doing well and fine. Holy moly. That's a good one. When you're feeling well and fine, you know it's an okay day. I think I'm feeling well and fine as well. Feeling the need to breathe. Feeling the need to kind of reconnect with the flow and just, just be. There's a lot of big thoughts going on, like around, a lot of big feelings, a lot of there's been a lot of action lately, you know what I mean? And for those of us who are out there learning, growing, perhaps participating in activism for the first time in our lives, there's a whole other level of work going on to the, that which is just normal kind of life during a global pandemic. So all these adjustments are happening internally, and I think having a week off, at least for myself, allowed me to kind of reflect on that a little bit and find my footing again, feel the ground under me a little bit more securely than I had been in a little while. So yeah, that's how I'm doing, kind of there, trying to decide how I feel about, well, you can't really decide how you feel, can you? You can decide to do things with what you feel, but you can't really decide how to feel. So I'm using the feelings I have to find a kind of, to provide direction. Yeah, and it looks like we're going to be in this place with one another for a while longer. So I'm just going to be here. Not like here streaming all the time, no, but every Wednesday. But I think I had to make a decision to let go of a lot of the expectations I had about what the near future was holding for me and for the Living Room project, and decide, okay, what am I going to do with what I have, with the community I have, with the people I have with me in my life, whether they're with me in that place that I call home, and I include my cats and dog as people as well, and the people in my community, you folks, to see what we can do together, how we can grow and thrive. Yeah, so that's how I'm doing. So Lori, off tomorrow and countdown to vacation. Yes, a much needed break in 1 week and 1 day. Oh my goodness, I love that. Oh, and David. Oh yes, this quote here, I wanted to have it out today because it's been in my mind lately, and I need to. It's been stirring around inside of me. So whenever words do that, I want to keep them close, and especially when I'm making art today, I don't know how this will inform what I create or what I do, but I wanted to share it with folks because I think it's a really good thing. So self-compassion is not to be confused with self-love of the common self-help variety. We're not trying to pump ourselves up so that we can believe in ourselves. We're committed to knowing ourselves so we can benefit others. And that was written by Margaret J. Wheatley. And I've been thinking about that a lot. What does it mean? What does self-compassion mean? When times are tough and we expect so much of ourselves, we work so hard, right? Laura, there's a reason you're so excited about this vacation. You've been working so hard during this whole time on so many levels, right? All of us do. Amanda. Hi, Amanda. It's so good to see you. Oh, well, I miss the studio too, but you're welcome to make yourself at home as much as you can in this studio here virtually with me and with other community members. And let's see what we can create with one another today. All the while remembering self-compassion. So trying to really understand what self-compassion is in a practical sense, not just an airy-fairy kind of nice to write in a greeting card kind of sense, but what does having compassion for ourselves mean? Especially during these times when our options are more limited, our actions are more restrained or restricted, when there is, so much to do in our own lives and in the world. I think self-compassion is an essential ingredient to doing that with wisdom and grace and humility and humor, perhaps, too, right? Being able to laugh, that's such an important thing. Being able to laugh at ourselves, which I think I do quite a bit, laughing at myself, that is, in a lovely way, I think. A lovely way. But I'll keep that out, and I'll keep that available as I work today, just to remind myself. But another take on what self-compassion is. Yeah. So how are folks? So we know some folks are getting ready for vacation. We know some people are, well, what? I mean, it's summer, it's hot. People got to be hot out there. Hopefully people are coping, getting by, keeping themselves hydrated, as one should, as I reach for my iced coffee. Not as good as Brew Wizards, but, it'll do. I'm very lucky to have it. Yes, welcome. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in live. Welcome to everyone. Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Welcome. Welcome to people who are just joining now. Welcome to everyone who watches the live stream later and catches up on what we're doing. And, even though it might not be live, please feel free to reach out if you have a comment or a thought. If you'd like to join the chat today and connect with other community members, you are more than welcome to do that. If you're familiar with the live stream, but not necessarily with the community members who come to the studio, maybe you're seeing names along the side. Hello, Dan. Warm milk. Dan is drinking warm milk. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, you do you. I mean, it might not be a mistake. I'm not the boss of you. I'm sure you had a very good reason to drink the warm milk. And, yes. And Emily, we were very lucky. We had a super social distance garden visit today. That was lovely, much needed. And Emily will be our guest for this upcoming Tuesday's live stream on Instagram. We're going to be chatting about a whole bunch of things. Emily is a writer, an artist, an educator, a professor at Trent University. And we're going to be dipping into some of the artistry of teaching in this chat to learn more about what it's like to work with students, to pass along and sort of provide guidance to people who are learning and breaking new ground, like how do you use your, Emily, you're going to be speaking to this so much more eloquently next week, but what is the role of professor and teacher and leader as ally in the classroom, in the community? What do we do to not just pass along information, but to make questioning possible, to make discoveries possible? Because, I'm going to stop talking about it right now because there's so much to talk about. I'm going to invite everyone to join us on Instagram next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Tune in to meet the one and only amazing Emily. And I do have a book on hand that will be one of the things we will probably be touching base on. So the book called The Body is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love. So we might be stumbling upon that during that conversation. There's so much there, but I'm really excited to get reading this. Yeah. All right, I'll put that aside for now. And where was I? Welcoming people. Yeah, that's right. Welcoming people. If you're seeing people in the chat that you'd like to get to know, introduce yourself. If you're seeing someone that you think you might know,
why don't you check in and see if you do? Chances are, if you've been to the studio, you might have met some of the folks who are chatting in the stream as we're going along here today. And if you'd like to reacquaint yourselves with them or check in to see how they're doing, feel free. And again, just like at the studio, if I was at the back washing coffee mugs and you're sitting up front making art and someone comes into the studio, please feel free to welcome them on my behalf. If I'm not able to see them right away, if I don't have a chance to say hello right away, as I was saying, I've said a few times before that I don't always know who's joining in and watching during these. I see people when they chat, when they say hello, and so I know they're there. But if they tune in to watch, I may not see them. But you might from where you're at home. So if you do want to welcome people to the studio, to this virtual studio space, please feel free. All right. Yeah, okay, so yes, so much excitement happening, so much this piece, that self-compassion piece. How do we cultivate that? How do we grow that? How do we recognize it? What the heck is it? I don't know. And I don't know if I'll have any other answers at the end of today, but I think I'd like this piece by Margaret Wheatley to infuse the work I'm doing today, whatever that means. Yeah? So I'm going to put that aside for now. Maybe I'll just tuck it over here. Maybe then it can still be seen. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Yeah, I came in today. Usually I have some idea of what I want to do, but I really didn't know today. So I think I'd like to explore. I might just work with collage again. Take some prepared pieces that I've made over the last few months, reincorporate them perhaps. Build up layer upon layer and see where it leads me. And along the way, I'm not sure if you've got self-compassion on the brain at home, but if you have any thoughts about it, I'd certainly love to hear them. I think this quote in particular, I love the, calling out the idea of self-help, and that self-love, self-love of the common self-help variety. That's a pretty powerful thought for me. A really interesting thing to examine in myself, because the culture we live in is so infused with that idea of, helping ourselves. When oftentimes helping ourselves relies on us reaching out to seek support from other people who perhaps have more answers, more knowledge, more wisdom. It's also, I think, there's also an element of, when we see something everywhere, the concept of self-help, at least for myself, when we see it popping up culturally, and this isn't a bad thing, it's just kind of something that I seem to notice happening in myself, that I begin to think it's really accessible, that it's easy, that it's something that I can just pick up and carry along with me. And when we're talking about real self-compassion and real self-love, I think a lot of us out there can agree. Let me know if I'm not alone in this. It's hard. It's hard. And there are a lot of reasons why it's hard. And so it takes some work and being patient with ourselves along the way. That's, it's like we're learning all these little pieces. We're learning them, and then we're learning about the pieces, and then we're making the pieces. And we're making the pieces and customizing to fit and work within our own lives where we're at right now. Sorry, I just had a moment when I was thinking Laura's watching, and I'm not sure what Laura's working on at home, but the last few times I saw Laura at the studio working on collages, you've been using cutouts and punched shapes to make your pieces. So I think I'm going to let that. I don't have a punch at hand, but let's see, what shall I do? Let's play with shapes. Yeah, the customization, the learning about ourselves so that we can truly learning about ourselves so that we can have that compassion for ourselves, so that we can learn not how, learn what? How to be there for other people? How to be of service? Again, that's, there's something The idea of service is an important one for me. And if I'm talking too much, just let me know, right? If you want me to be quiet a little while, just say, Mary, weird art lady, shh. Just you can type that in. Just type it in. Back to basics, Laura, with the cutouts and the collage, or or me back to basics. Or back to basics and knowing myself and learning about myself. Which side of this do I like a little bit more? Yeah, the idea of service is a big one. For me growing up, I grew up in a pretty conservative Christian household. And I think with the idea of, along with that organized religion stuff, were a lot of really interesting contradictory messages I received about what service meant and who service, like why, what being of service was for. And the more I examine them, the more I realize they're not entirely healthy. Not for me, not for the people I work with. And I would really love to, even with the Living Room project, there's always been a part of it. Like if I had a magic wand, the studio would become kind of obsolete in its own way, right? That each one of us would learn how to transfer what we love about the studio, what happens there, take it home with us, take it into the community. And then we wouldn't necessarily need an art studio. Or maybe it would become something else to the community, right? All of those things. But it's not a passive process, this examining of self and why we do what we do. Feel free to join in, folks, if you have any thoughts. Please let me know. I really do love using old dictionaries to create with. This one's starting off with the top of page 177, Cradle Song. What does it say, cradle song? Oh, it just says lullaby. That's it. A cradle song. What it says on the tin. All right. Here we go. Don't have a punch, so I'm just going to give this a go. I like having that rough edge though, so maybe I'll leave some of that on there. Yeah, today might be a bit of a babbly day for me, so just, bear with me, as you normally do. And for anyone out there as well who might be struggling, who might be having a difficult day, I'm glad you're here. I hope you can find some time today. I hope this can become a place where you can relax, create with whatever you happen to have on hand. If you're not creating something, perhaps you're just listening. That's okay too. But feel free to use this time for what you need to do. Again, just because I'm working on this strange collage-y kind of thing doesn't mean you have to. Use whatever materials you have on hand, whatever ideas you might have in your brain. Take some time. Take some time for you. Yeah, today's definitely one of those days. I'm not quite sure where this is going to take me, but let's see. Let's see where it goes. I think I've mentioned on other live streams how I'm a big fan of zine culture, and I've always had the desire to, like, I would love to just create zines, which for those of you who know, is my sort of, I guess I was inspired to do that really from knowing Samantha Willette, who's an amazing artist and educator working out there. And I love the idea of self-publishing and taking the knowledge that we have, or the ideas or thoughts that we have, and putting them out there into the world, not waiting necessarily for anyone's permission to do so, but learning, like just feeling, knowing that somehow it's okay, that what we know, there's value in what we know, and not feeling like we have to jump through all the hoops to express ourselves in that way. So this could also turn into a bit of a zine page. We'll see where it goes. Perhaps not a word zine, but maybe just a visual zine. What do I want? All right. Might also be quite a lot of humming here. Ah, wow. So Laura, you used to make, before you had your punchers, you used to make a template and cut everything out by hand? Wow. Yeah, freestyle is good to do too. It's, I mean, relaxing is one way of looking at it. More fun. Yeah, more fun. I feel, especially on this journey of today with self-compassion, I'm like, during this process, I've really been enjoying kind of building a relationship with myself and my own perfectionist tendencies, if we could call them that. Knowing that things don't have to be perfect. And when I'm hanging out with you folks here, well, that might make its own page. I can make another one. Working this way, just forcing myself to be a little more spontaneous with what I'm doing. Do I like that there? Maybe I don't. Do I feel like maybe having more geometrics right now? Maybe. I think something nice about the live streaming when I'm working with you folks, I don't have a chance to really overthink much. Hello, Courtney. Welcome. And I just put things down. I just create, arrange, organize. Oh, I think my glue stick is I think it's melting a little bit. I might have to put it in the freezer a little bit later. Yeah, just knowing, finding that comfort in just doing things. Finished, not perfect, right? And I think from that, I'm learning a lot more about my own visual vocabulary, my own creative vocabulary, how I express myself, what it means, discovering a style without feeling like I have to do it in any, recreate someone else's style, impersonate someone else's style. Sometimes just thinking about things too much puts me in a place where I want to create as other people have created before me and not let myself create in the way that I need to create. Oh, Courtney, so good to see you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And you know what? We miss you too. How are you doing? What have you been creating lately? And it's okay if you haven't been creating anything, because life is as it is. There's a lot of other things going on for so many of us. But if you have, again, created something that you'd like to share, please do. You can talk about it. You can take pictures of it. You can share it in the chat. What happens when I do this? Why not? Please feel free to share what you're working on. Share links to what you're working on. If there are things you're enjoying that you think other people might enjoy, you can post them here as well. I think I want to channeling a little bit of Margaret here. whenever I work with torn up tissue paper, I always think of Margaret. Margaret and Jeanette working at the back of the studio. Let's see, what do I have? Do I have another? Yeah, you'll do. Just gonna dip some glue in here, create an instant kind of Mod Podge thing. Let's see. Oh, nice. We were just talking, so Courtney's just saying he had a whole bunch. You got yourself a whole bunch and a whole bunch of scrapbooking paper, so you're working on using it for your journals. Excellent. Yeah, nice. Join me in making a journal. I love that. There's been a lot of conversations with my students as well. We still have placement students right now who are amazing and hanging in and doing their thing in very interesting times. One of the conversations we have are, like, we've talked about art journals before, different kinds of journals. I think we've talked about journals on this live stream too. Because if you're not familiar with the genre, there are so many different kinds of journals. And I think for a lot of us, we tend to think of the more traditional type, like something you write in, perhaps like a diary. But there are art journals, there are mixed media journals, I found some fabric scraps, a whole bunch, okay. I found a whole bunch of fabric scraps today that I'd stitched together and forgotten about. And I remember that I would like to turn them into their own journal, like not for writing, but for textile, a textile journal, a textile diary. Kind of saving the bits and pieces I've used from projects over the years, transforming them into something a little new, a little different. On one hand, it looks very much like it could be a needle case. But I think I'd like to actually stitch or embroider images or words or thoughts onto the pages. So maybe I'll bring that around next week and I'll start working on that. Because I always feel called to working with textiles, especially when I'm feeling anxious or stressed. Not sure why. Piecing things together again, I think it has something to do with that, which is why, again, collage connects me. And Shelley, working on a wooden-shaped flowers, painting them and adding names. Oh, names of the children you've cared for in your daycare years. Wow, you've worked with over 200 kids. You are going to have an enormous garden of wooden flowers there. I can't wait to see them. Do you think you'll hold on to them? Do you think you'll share them with people? That seems like it could be a really interesting kind of guerrilla art project or found art project to create art in honor of the people that we love, maybe people that we aren't able to see as frequently or at all right now, and we can plant them around the city. Again, over time, I suggest a lot of things that involve leaving art in the city. I've not talked to anyone about this. I've not cleared it with anyone. Be safe. Use your best judgment. If you'd like to say, Mary from the Living Room told me to do it, feel free, because I love having those kind of awkward conversations with the city. But do be safe. But I do love found art. I love looking at things and wondering, like looking through whatever it is that person has created, whether it's street art in a more traditional sense, like painting or yarn bombing. I know Laura was up to that a few months ago with folks. Or if it's a painted rock, I love being able to look at it, and it's like a little doorway, a tiny little window into someone else's life that you may not get the chance to meet, but you get to see them. You know they're there. So when I think of those wooden flowers with the names of all the children you've worked on, the children you've worked with, and perhaps those children have worked on you. I don't think we ever leave any relationship without being changed by that person somehow. But it would be interesting to see those wooden flowers pop up around the city, around the neighborhoods we live in. It's like seeing your name somewhere. Perhaps I had friends growing up, with those keychains and those weird things you'd get at, with people's names on them. And I had a lot of friends whose names were unusual, so they never could buy any of those trinkets. So whenever they did see their name somewhere, it was this enormously wonderful and strangely validating thing for them to be able to see their name represented in the world. And I wonder if that might be the same with these flowers. Maybe, wow, Shelley, maybe you might have just inspired a whole new kind of living room project here. We'll see. If anyone's excited about that and wants to take it on, just, let me know. Okay, so we have a call from Courtney. So, oh yes, so we got some scrapbooking projects, some scissors with funky, oh yeah, that funky edged scissors, absolutely. And you want someone to draw you a gnome. Okay, we have a gnome shout out here. Is there anyone in the community who can draw Courtney a gnome? Now, you might want to be a little more specific with what kind of gnome you need. I imagine there are many different kinds of gnomes out there in the world. Just saying, I've never met one personally, but you might have a very specific vision of the gnome you want or need in your life right now. So the more specific you can be about who is this gnome? Who is this gnome? What do they do? What do they like? What are their passions? Do they struggle with anything? What kind of communities around them? There must be many different kinds of gnomish communities. I'm not familiar with all of them. Although I have recently started playing D&D, and I am playing a gnome, so maybe that's why I'm feeling so passionate about the gnome. So in Shelley, oh nice, okay, so the flowers, it sounds like the flowers will be going into an old aquarium that you're turning into a garden. Oh, lovely. And then you're adding bubbles for the top of the aquarium with children's names as well, and you'll keep them. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to have representing this part of your life. And you've looked after children, wow, since you were 11 years old. Now you're 55. Wow. That's a life. That's what a fantastic, think about with over 200 children that you've worked with, that you've known, 200 children being a part of your life. That's an important legacy. All those lives that you've been a part of. And it does remind me a great deal of teachers and what teachers do. And even in a small way at the living room, knowing that, it's been open long enough that we've seen little kids turn into teenagers, or teenagers go on to go to university or college or to move out, like all these big moments in life. It makes, at least for me, it makes me think about, wow, I'm so honored. I feel so privileged to have played such, even a small part in that person's life, in their journey. Laura working on painting some rocks, and you were excellent. So Laura painted some rocks and hid them around Poho. Is that what Port Hope is called these days? Huh. Oh, mandalas and rainbows for pride. Oh, shh, they're unsigned, everybody. So you didn't hear me. Yeah. Shh. Secret art, found art, one of my favorite things in the world. When libraries were open, every once in a while I'd create something like this even, and I don't know what the librarians must have thought. And just sneak them into the pages of a book, right? I think once or twice I even did it at a bookstore with a particular book that I would really love, right? Just, putting something in between the pages. Ah, Annie, nice to see you, Annie. Mary Gnome. Metronome? So now there's a riff going on. We have a whole other side conversation riffing on gnomes. I do love it. And, so in Courtney, Annie, are you creating a gnome for Courtney? That's fabulous. I do love wordplay. Wow. Annie, that's amazing. So it looks like Annie's going to try to draw a gnome and send it to Courtney. This is the kind of thing I love. The community still pulling together, sharing their art, creating what they create. in all the ways. What can I do here? Let's see. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? Well, maybe this is where this comes into play. Yes. Yep, it's time. It is time for this to be cut up. So all these little bits and pieces I create, I don't know if you do the same thing at home, but I always hold on to them, even if I'm not crazy about them. You never know when they might suddenly be needed or called into action in another work of art. Okay. Excellent gnome drawings happening. Okay. There we go. Oh, so where was I? Amongst the talks of gnomes, found art, painted rocks, yarn bombing. I think we're talking about self-compassion and what that looks like. Learning about ourselves, learning how to love ourselves. For those who are just joining us, welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for joining the live stream. And if you're watching this later when it's not live, you know you're welcome too. And I like to remind people that this runs an hour and a half from 2 to 3:30 every Wednesday, but you don't have to stay that whole time. Use this space like you would the studio. Drop in for a few minutes, create something, check in with people. You can stay as long as you like. And if you need to go to do some other things, run some errands or take a break, walk away. Do what you need to do to feel good. Do what you need to do. Let's see. I don't always know what these bits and pieces will become. And it wouldn't surprise me if this piece I'm working on now in a few weeks' time becomes something that I cut up and transform into something else. That's just a part of this process. Listening to the creative process. Being in the creative process, the flow of things. I don't always know what it means as I'm doing it, and I don't necessarily need to. Oh, hello, hello. So a question not related to art. What software are you using for the live show? Do you use 2 cameras? Oh, thank you. You really like the setup. That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, what do we have here? I'm using, it's fairly, I say it's pretty simple, but it took me a while to get used to it. And of course, I should give a huge shout out to Anthony Granny, my partner, and for now, my lovely little tech guide in all things virtual. We're using the camera in a laptop. So when I'm looking at you and talking to you here, that's the laptop camera. And then overhead, I actually have an external webcam that I've placed to look down to examine. And then I'm live streaming this through Facebook from another platform. So that's where it gets a little technical, and maybe it might be worthwhile having Anthony Granny. Maybe I'll do a live stream Instagram Tuesday chat with Anthony so that he can explain kind of what we're doing here. Because it is, I like that I can chat with people and that you can see me working on things, and that you can also see what my hands are doing at the same time. And I think for anyone who wants to share what they're working on in that way, it's a really useful thing. I imagine there are plenty of tutorials on YouTube. There are other YouTubers out there, people who do this kind of thing and have been doing this thing for a very long time for a living. I'm sure they have tutorials as well. So you can just Google and look into different setups online for streaming virtually, connecting with community. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm really, really glad that I have it. The great thing about the webcam that I'm using, it's not that expensive. It's I think it might have even been $35 or $40. I mean, that's money. It's not nothing, but compared to a lot of the other things, a lot of the ways other people shoot things, this is a really practical and, for me, manageable way to run things. Once you get the hang of it, it works really, really well. But maybe I will have Anthony Granny on and maybe a little workshop, and everyone can ask questions about how he does it, and if you need it or if you'd like to use it for your own virtual studio work you're doing at home, or perhaps for teaching. It's not a bad thing to know about. I know Danny Crosby is going to be working from a similar setup this year when she teaches at Durham College. She's a fine arts teacher there, and we've been helping her out, kind of getting her set up with some tools, because it's something about human engagement. I think one of the things, and speaking of self-compassion, learning how to create new boundaries around things as we move to connecting and creating and learning with one another more remotely. It's really asking our brains to do a lot, to learn things in a brand new way. And the Zoom setup or messenger rooms, for that, like any kind of window where we're looking at people's faces, and that's the main thing we're seeing. I don't know if anyone else is feeling this out there, but I find it really exhausting, because in normal life we don't just stare at one another for the entire conversation, for the entire engagement. We look away, we look up again, and I'll use Zoom just as a word, not because Zoom's the only one out there. There are plenty of other ones, I'm sure, but it's not the most natural way to connect with other people. And this, for me, helps me feel like I can be released from that performative kind of quality, like always having to be on and looking out to people that are there. It allows me to look away, to do things, to feel more like myself as I'm doing things. And I like that it gives people something to look at. So if you don't want to look at my face, you can just watch, me muck about with the materials. So thank you for the question. And keep an eye out. Let me know if that's something folks would like to see. If you'd like to see, learn a little bit more about how we do this, how we've done this setup. Let's see. More. What am I doing here? That's what I'm doing. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're all being asked to adjust, and adjust fairly quickly. I was saying to one of my students, it's only been approximately 3 months since the world has changed. And I think you're not alone if you're feeling frustrated. You're not alone if you're feeling burnt out from communicating in this new way, from the expectations around having to adjust everything to work, to do things that, for many of us, we just only became comfortable with doing them face to face and in physical, like with one another physically. And now it's, we're being asked to change everything again. It's only been 3 months. It's only been 3 months. And things are different, and they might be different for a while. And I think, I don't know, opinions are my own, but I feel like we'll be taking a lot of what we learn and what we do during this time, we'll be moving it forward when there is a vaccine even. There will be things that we love. There'll be things that we do want to hold on to, right? There will be people out there who really thrive and benefit from working in a virtual space for at least part of the time. There's others who like a balance of both, like myself. I need to have time to repair and to recover after spending a lot of time with people. I need time to be back in my space and be alone. But if I don't have at least this kind of contact or this kind of engagement with people, I think I'm the worse for it. And I do know, and for those people who might be listening out there or watching, this isn't easy for folks, especially those who may not have easy access to Wi-Fi. I ran into Bonnie the other day, or Bonnie as some people know her, just on the street. And for a lot of folks, of course, they don't have a computer, they don't have internet at home. And like Bonnie's one of those folks who would go to the library to use the library's computer to check in on all the things, and or to send emails, or to do that kind of digital communication. And there's a lot of people out there right now who don't have that, or who may not have enough data to be able to watch something like this if they're not near a Wi-Fi source. So again, I want to remind those folks out there, I'm thinking of you, and we're trying to think of ways that we can connect and create safely with you, or perhaps ways we can get you resources so that you can access the same things that other people access without it becoming, without it compromising or taking away from any other part of your life. Because it's not cheap, right? And that's another reason why I appreciate it so much. For those folks who are able to join me here, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know it's you're taking time out of your day as well, so I appreciate that too. I'm liking the look of that, actually. I wasn't sure if I would. See, it's great. When I chat to you guys, I forget to criticize myself. Yeah. So if anyone is out there and you're perhaps seeing folks in the community that don't have access to Wi-Fi, who aren't able to tune in, let them know we're thinking of them, and we're looking at other ways to connect. And we're looking at other ways. I mean, it's not fair in many ways when so much of modern life relies on technology, when there are so many things now that are just expected, that we're expected to have on hand. It's one of those things. It's not fair that there are folks who live without it. It's a really interesting conversation about, what would that conversation be called? The democratization of tech, access to digital information, increased opportunities for access. Like, it's an access issue, isn't it, really, at the end of the day? And if there's any profs or teachers or people who are working in those industries who are listening right now, if you know of anything that's happening with regards to how those areas are innovating, what people might be doing to make a difference there. It's one of the reasons why, I love that people missed the studio, but we didn't have Wi-Fi. But the libraries being closed, that's a really difficult thing for so many people. And obviously there's a reason why they're closed, right? I just wonder if there's a way, or if there are organizations out there who can address that gap that's happening right now with regards to access to internet, access to technology for people who don't have it, who can't afford it, who don't have room for it. There's lots of different reasons. And Annie, you're right, it can be extra isolating. I'm imagining if not having this, there's also a difference in not having this after you've been able to have it, after you've had access, after you've learned how to communicate with people, had those opportunities, built up relationships, checked in with people. For some folks I know in the community, Facebook might be the only way they're able to connect with family. So And that would happen at the library. They would go to the library, log in, check in with family. And now, they don't have that. It's a different thing, right? Not everyone has smartphones. I know it seems strange, but there are a lot of folks out there who don't have, it's not as easy, right? It's just not as easy as it is for some of us. It's another part of privilege, that we can prioritize technology in the way we do in our lives, right? We make it happen. Oh yeah, there's a lot there, Annie. Yeah, accessibility to communication. And I'm not sure if it would make a difference. I know there has been talks at various points in time to, for cities to have blanket Wi-Fi access, for universities to do, and colleges to do the same. I don't, I'm going to be honest here. I don't know enough about it to speak with any authority at all. But if this is a part of our normal from now on, if we will be asking everyone to learn online, to stay connected and updated online, then this is something we're going to need to address as a culture, right? Yeah, and he's recognizing that independence, the option to have access to information. I share things, John Henry in Durham region, making mask wearing when you're indoors, in public places indoors, mandatory as of July 10th. I saw that through a tweet. But if you didn't have a smartphone, that information becomes a lot harder to access or stumble upon, right? Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. So Shelley has just acknowledged and corrected something for me, which is amazing. So for those of you who didn't know, like me, libraries are setting up appointments for computer use. So you can set up an appointment to go in and use their computers. And I imagine that's something that is more manageable. That is excellent to hear. Love it. So the libraries are closed for everything else other than these appointments to use technology. And Laura's saying, yeah, I think Port Hope boosted their Wi-Fi at the community center, or maybe it was a library to be a public access hub. Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, have it at home, but no data, and sometimes find myself looking for a Timmy's or a place for Wi-Fi. Yeah, I think a lot of us have been in that situation where we have been away from our primary Wi-Fi source, and strange language coming out of my mouth. Sometimes I hear myself and wow. But yeah, you find yourself out and you need to find a Starbucks, you need to find a Timmy's, you're wandering around holding up your phone, trying to check in, trying to look really casual as you're kind of leaning against a trash can or something in the parking lot so that you don't have to go in and purchase something. But definitely a huge issue. So those who are listening who have the connections, who have who can make those calls and have those conversations with people who could perhaps make those kind of changes. I don't know what those changes would entitle. No idea. I don't know what they would involve. But it's such an important part of life today during, and even before pre-COVID, it was difficult for a lot of people in the community if you drop your cell phone, if you're sleeping rough, let's say, and your phone falls and shatters, or it gets wet in a rainstorm, or it gets stolen. These little things that for some of us are just really crappy, like really crappy luck or like a bad day, for someone else means that they suddenly don't have access to all their supports or their banking information or their appointments, their calendar, right? Little things that certainly I take for granted, that for other people are really huge. And that's aside from all the things, like personal things, bits and pieces, like connection to Facebook or being able to have photographs of your loved ones on hand. We're not, I don't know the last time I actually printed out a photo. I keep them on my phone and I look at them and I might, when I'm smart enough, remember to back them up. But for people, that's their scrapbook. That's You know, that can be their connection to family, to memories, to moments that have meaning for them, that make their days better, that give them a reason. Hey, Lindsay, nice to see you. We're talking about access to internet and Wi-Fi and things that I don't really understand, but I think should be more available to everyone all of the time, especially now during this time when libraries and other points aren't as easy to access for computer use, really. There's so many, we use our phones, our devices for so many things. It's just, I think, a little unfair that for a lot of people out there, what we take as just something we have, for them it's a choice between perhaps rent or food. And if something happens to that phone, it's hard. It's so much harder than you can imagine. And again, another thing to count my blessings about. At least for right now. Because life can change, huh? Knock on wood. But sometimes I like to remind myself that every person I've ever worked with who has found themselves... Oh! The video has gone away. Playing this video. Alright, people. I'm looking at a black screen there. Please let me know if you can see me or if it's gone away. Yeah, in an instant things can change. Yeah, in an instant things can change. Let me know if you can hear me. And I'll check in. Actually, I'll check in with my, see again, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. I'll check in with my in-house tech. Let's see. Let me know if I'm still streaming, folks. And oh, so Emily can see me, Laura can see me, people see me, all good. So it's just me. Okay, so you can see me. All right, we'll see. So there might be an issue with archiving it. We'll find out later on. But I'm just gonna, okay, you're still there. I'm still here. Let's trust this. Anthony Granny. Hello, Anthony Granny.
Hello. I'm not camera ready.
You're
I
not
work
camera.
from the side.
So my screen right here is has gone dark. People can still hear me. People can still see me.
Does it say something on it? I don't know my glasses.
So everyone, a little window into my life. And speaking of tech, isn't this interesting? Have I conjured something? Has someone listening to my conversation? Anyways, I'm not going to go there. My screen is saying, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video.
And that's on Facebook?
It's on Facebook.
Can you click on OBS? How's OBS?
I can click on there. So you guys are seeing behind the scenes, and someone was asking about. So I'm here on OBS. There I am.
Oh, yeah.
So OBS is one of the systems we use, folks, to stream and get this up there. So it could be just on my other link. Yeah, I'm not saying so. I will. Laura says hello, and Emily says hello. People are saying hello.
Emily.
Yeah. So there you go. In an instant, things can change, and there's a little example about that, right? In an instant, and we never know where we're going to be. And every person I've worked with who has been street involved, which can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't always necessarily mean sleeping rough, like sleeping on the streets. I think we all know that. It can mean just being really insecurely housed, couch surfing, not knowing where the next month's rent is going to come from. There's a lot of different things that contribute to that. And I think for a lot of people, artists, students, these are things we think about quite frequently just because we have to. And even within that, there's privilege, right? I'm lucky that I know enough about technology that I can, know that it's something I can access, that I'm not afraid of it anymore. There was a time when I was, but I'm not afraid of it anymore, which is good. But yes, I do encourage those folks, if you are out there, if you're at all connected to the communities that can make, that can work on changing this. Laura was saying, again, let's see, what did I see back there? Yeah, other towns that have done what Port Hope has done, which is, I'm not sure if, is that a boosting thing, a boosting the Wi-Fi thing? I'm not sure. Here, guys, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try refreshing this page. So if I go away, I'll be back, I think. Yeah? Should I give it a go? I'm going to give it a go. Live dangerously, right? There we go. Refresh, refresh, refresh. So it's telling me that the video is there, but all the chat has gone. Oh. Hello? Hello? I can see again. I can see it's back. Okay. Wow, that was an exciting, exciting journey. Hitting the refresh button. That was, that's content for dinner conversation right there. My adventure with the refresh button. And I'm still here. Oh yeah. And there might be folks who are listening right now too, and I apologize if it seems like I'm talking about these things in a light way, because I'm aware there's probably, there are folks listening or watching right now who are insecurely housed, who are wondering those same things, and like looking to the next month or perhaps the end of this month and not quite knowing, where things will be. And if you're there, then maybe technology isn't a priority, right? I think all of these pieces, though, contribute to, if that's part of the expectation for us to communicate these ways, respond to people, then either, we find ways to make it accessible for everyone, or what do we do? Slow things down, step back? I'm not sure if we can step back from this. We can manage how we use it, for sure, which goes back to that sense of boundary creation with technology, and having some interesting conversations with folks about that. And just the relationship we have with it. Just because we can doesn't mean we need to all the time. And definitely knowing when to take breaks and to step away from what is it called? Doom scrolling? The doom scrolling that we can do, just, constantly, that fire hose of information that comes at us that can make it difficult to actually process the information we're receiving, or not the information. So this is another Margaret Wheatley thing, which was the quote that we started off the beginning of this podcast with. Oh, my phone is in the shot. Thank you. Anthony texting me from... So this is... Okay, technology. Is the theme of today technology? Is that what this is all about? I don't know. Where was I? Oh, yes. Okay, so another Margaret Wheatley thing. So this is the quote we started the day off with in this book as well, which I think is called... I should know this. This is from Who Do We Choose to Be, which I think is her most recent book, which is an interesting examination of the systems we work within, and also perhaps the decline of our civilization. It's intense, but also it's a very, very hopeful book. And I love how she describes kind of where like our lives intersect with technology and everything that comes at us being data. It's not information. Information is what happens when we take that data and we process it, when we make meaning of it, when we apply it, when we kind of learn how it impacts our own lives. And she breaks it down in that lovely little way, which is like it's in formation. Hadn't thought about that before. And I really do. I love that. The information. So data needs to be contextualized, or else it is just stuff. Extra stuff. that we're putting into our brains and asking ourselves to understand and process. But sometimes if you're taking in too much, I think if you're like me anyways, your brain will just suddenly say no, no more, if you're not regulating it in some way. So yes, taking breaks, creating new boundaries for technology, looking for ways to advocate so others have technology. They can have the same kind of access to information that so many of us have without really thinking about. All right. Another theme of the day, hearts coming out. Hearts coming out to play. Yeah. There's so many things. I guess this time has really just reminded me in lots of different ways about how much I take for granted. I didn't necessarily realize. I think I like to think of myself as someone who's reflective and actively examining things, but it's easy to slide away. So can you give, and I'm looking at this name and I'm trying to, if I pronounce it, I'm worried that I'm going to butcher it. Is the S sound? Is it Lusan? Let me know if I'm at all in the ballpark. If not, we'll connect another way perhaps, and I can learn how to say your name. I would really like to learn how to say your name. It's one of the things I really enjoy about being in the studio. So for folks who are new to the studio and folks that I maybe haven't had a chance to meet before, the studio, oh my goodness, is it time for the spiel? Okay, I'm going to give the spiel, everybody. Hang in there. And if you're at home and you haven't had a chance to do the spiel in a long time, this could be considered your vocal warm-up for today. So yeah, the Living Room Community Art Studio is a part of something called the Art Hive movement. So I think it's really important for me to honor that and acknowledge that we're part of something larger than, and you might have heard about the Art Hive movement. You can visit arthives.org to learn more about that. I guess it's an umbrella organization, but it's not so much a thing we belong to as a resource for anyone like myself who might be interested in starting a creative space that people can go to or gather in a virtual space to connect and create together. And Art Hives, like all Art Hives, we believe in creating safe spaces where people can come to connect and create with one another for free or for very low cost. The idea is to remove as many barriers as possible from people connecting or reconnecting with their creative potential, the ability to transform one thing into another. Yeah? Because I think one of the wonderful things about art, no matter what kind of art you create, no matter what kind of modality you use, you learn how it kind of builds up that internal awareness, that agency, that belief, that understanding that if I can do that here, I can do that in other parts of my life as well. And it becomes less scary. You get a chance to practice it, because I don't think there are enough opportunities to practice it without fear of judgment or consequence in a high stakes kind of way. Reminding people that creativity is a part of their birthright. That's a really important thing. We're born creative. We are born creative. And I think sometimes our cultures, our societies, like, maybe, I'm not sure how intentional this is all the time, but it can get stripped away from us, removed from us at a certain point in time. And there's Anthony Granny, who's also answering and giving us some information about the cameras too. But here, I'll continue on with the spiel. So where was I, folks? So when people come to the living room, the studio space itself is located, right now it's located at 149 Simcoe Street South in Oshawa. We are not open right now because of COVID, because pandemic. And that's just, well, for a lot of reasons. It's, you know, the Art Hive movement is so much, in its original state anyways, so it's about people coming together and connecting. So in the studio space, we gather, we come together in person with one another so that we can get to know one another, learn about one another, learn how to be a resource to one another, practice these creative skills, which also involve the skill of humaning, which I absolutely believe is an art form. And if I may go back a little bit too, just to that point about what art is, we believe that everyone is an artist. It's not just about Eurocentric ideas of fine art or who artists are, what art is or should be. Creativity and art has everything to do with anything that you make that makes you feel good or helps you feel better, helps you express yourself, educate yourself or others about who you are, what it's like to be you in the world. It helps you learn about other people, just creates that common ground that allows us to learn about one another without even being aware that that's what's happening. When I was talking to Cora Reed a few weeks ago in one of the live stream Tuesday chats I did on Instagram, we were talking about music, and music is one of those beautiful art forms that you can convey really intense messages. You can make demands of people through music. You can, and that can be, positive, negative, helpful, hindering. But it is, all art is communication. And music is a great example of how, for whatever reason, we can absorb things, we can learn about things. We're open to learning about things so much more easily through art than we might be through dialogue. But one of the reasons why art hives are there, in my opinion, is so that we become more comfortable with the art of dialogue as well. So what first is passive learning, passive understanding of one another becomes practical, intentional. I want to learn about this, or I want to let you know that the thing you just did made me feel a certain way, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. I want to explore why you did that and learn how to human with you more effectively. Does that make sense? That's actually not a part of the spiel at all. But, I mean, it is. But I'm digging in here, folks. I miss being at the studio. I miss giving the spiel. So art hives are really filling that, like, addressing a need, that a gap in a lot of the other areas in culture, in education, creating those places, those spaces for common ground, for discovery. There's not a lot of places in any community that I know of outside of the library, and I love libraries, but there are not a lot of spaces you can go where you can try new things without fear of judgment, where you can be there without having to pay a lot of money, or any money, in the case of the living room, to do something that you love, to spend time there, to invest in yourself and in other people without the expectation of production being a part of it. Because you can come to the studio and you can create whatever it is you want to create. I'm not going to be over your shoulder judging it. I'm not an art teacher. I'm definitely not an art teacher. So it's not about producing something for a grade or something to sell, although you can absolutely use the studio space or use the virtual studio space for that. At the end of the day, it's really about creating and recognizing, and I suppose it's a place of social capital, recognizing one another as resources, the human resources that are there. And there aren't a lot of other places where you can do that in community. And I think that's why art hives, as they are, have, in the last decade, I think, for sure, becomes such an exciting thing. They're still not recognized, I feel, as like an essential service and community. as I feel they should be. But perhaps that's on its way. You know, it's not so long ago that community health centers were seen as extravagant or weird ideas. What, that was like maybe the 70s, right? You know, why would you need a community health center? So, you know, things change, things evolve. And if all of the Art Hive people out there had magic wands, there would be an Art Hive in every neighborhood, in every community, not just one Art Hive in a city. Every neighborhood would have its own Art Hive because Art Hives tend to resemble the communities that they're set in, so there's no template for it. Hello, Carlos. So good to see you. There's no template for an Art Hive in the sense of like here, like it's not a franchise, right? I created, or I helped found the LivingRoom. Other people helped me. I couldn't have done this on my own. I still can't do it on my own because I had a need in myself for a place, a creative home place in community where I could be, where I could express myself and connect with other people and learn about my community and what it was like. And through doing that, the community, everyone who's here, the same thing's happening online. Everything and everyone who participates in all of the creative things, all of the parts of themselves that they bring to it, create the space. So the Art Hive in itself, I always look at the studio, and this studio too, I suppose, as its own work of art. It's a very organic, it's a living work of art that grows and changes and evolves over time. And right now we're in a huge time of evolution, or not evolution because it's happening in a very strange and intense way, but we are growing and we are changing in a very dynamic way right now because of what's happening in the world. Art Hives will do that. They will reflect the communities they sit in. They will reflect the needs of their communities, the people who live there. And I see what was Carlos saying. Yeah, the art of humaning in relation to art also allows us to add wonderful new skills, shared knowledge, passion to our human palette. Oh, Carlos! That in itself allows us to create new and exciting and sometimes challenging human pieces of art. We are human works of art. Yeah, in our future interactions. Yeah, I think it makes sense. By interacting, we add to one another's emotional and social art palette, basically. If each one of us is a work in progress, that is, and I think we will forever be a work in progress. I don't think there's an end point where we suddenly jump up and say, I'm finished, right? I'm done. Everything's okay, perfect. I'm exactly where I want to be right now. And for me personally, that would be so boring if that was the case. We're constantly learning, constantly growing. In my chat with Warren, I chatted with Warren Edwards yesterday for the live stream, who is the founder of Project Impact Youth. And he doesn't consider himself an artist, and or at least not in a traditional kind of fine arts way, but that art of humaning is where we find common ground. The sense that working with youth, he's working to remind them that they themselves are a story. Our lives are stories that we can tell, that we are in charge of our own stories. So that we're moving through and we're telling, we're looking at our stories in the past and we're saying, well, what kind of story do we want to tell about ourselves moving forward? What kind of role do we want to play in our story? The human art piece, each one of us is absolutely a work of art. And that's where I find such joy running the studio. I don't know if I'm just rambling, folks. I am full on rambling. If I was in the studio right now, someone would probably remind me to have a drink. So I'm going to hydrate for a moment. Excellent. Breathe, Mary. Breathe. I just get so excited when people ask about this. I think it's part of being a social practice artist, which is a new term to me as well, so I'm becoming comfortable with this too. Thank you, Carlos, reminding me I'm not rambling. Much love. Again, speaking for myself, this point in my life, recognizing that if I thought I was more, perhaps there are points in my life where I've thought, I'm further along in the process. I'm close to being done. Just a few more brush strokes or sprinkles of glitter, or maybe a piece of macaroni glued to the forehead. Maybe maybe the novel's almost finished. No, it's not. That's a weird, no, I'm not going to go there. But then I realize there are moments where everything changes, and that is because a new element has been added into it. That's what I love about working in community, being aware of being in community. I'm not alone, and everything informs the work of art that I'm becoming, that I am, and it's not always an easy process. It doesn't always come easily. It doesn't always, like, hey Jay, nice to see you. You'd read that novel? Oh, maybe I'll get to it one day. I do. Writing is something I do love doing. I love it. But yeah, I got to stop rambling and write. Oh, but I can't. I love rambling. Yeah, that sense of what is it? Being informed, when things inform who I am and how I move through the community. I'm just reminded like that it's not always an easy process. So in the studio, there are some people I watch paint, for example, and they're out there right now. You might be one of them. You might be painting right now, and no need to apologize. You're here, and that's for anyone who's welcome. If you're joining now or watching later after the live stream, you are welcome. There's no need to worry about feeling bad about not being here from the beginning or watching it afterwards. You do you. Slow life movement. Yes, the self as work in progress. When I watch other people paint, sometimes because they've spent so much time doing that specific, working in that medium, I watch them and it seems easy. What they have an idea in their mind, and it just seems to come out of them so seemingly effortlessly. It looks to me like it's easy. It may not be for them, but it looks easy. And there's a lot of reasons why I might think it looks easy, because it's happening fairly quickly compared to how long it might take me to do the same. There's lots of different reasons that play into that. And when I sit down to do a painting, it might take me months. It's not as easy. And some parts of my life are like that as well. And right now, in this time period, I feel like that's a little bit about where I'm at. That the art that is being created, whatever is happening within myself, it's still valuable, it's still meaningful, it's still beautiful and worthy of noticing and exploring, but it's not always easy. There are days and moments where it's really hard, and just having, sometimes even just getting up to come to the, if we're working with the painting analogy again, just being able to come to the table to paint or the easel to paint, just to step up can be difficult sometimes. But it's worth it, right? Oh, Carlos with a quote. Let's hear it. Okay. A line from a song by Ben Platt seems apt to share about this in relation to changes. You say, what if things start changing? I say, we'll be changing with them. We'll just sing a different melody and dance at a different rhythm. Yeah, that's lovely. And I would love to be a musician as well. On that note, yeah. There's so many things. All the things are available. I do love that as well. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. There's kind of a saying in the Art Hive movement. I don't know if it's an official saying, but it's goes like this: dream big, start small. Dream big, start small. And that can be working with whatever you have at hand, whether you're changing yourself, whether you're trying to change the world, whether you're working on an actual piece of something that's sitting in front of you, writing out something. Hello, Sean. That is a great quote, Sean. I agree. Yeah, I think recognizing that, start where you're at with what you have and work from there. And trust that even if the process isn't always easy, and it may not always even be rewarding, at least not immediately, but it's worthy. It's a worthy process. Yeah? Yeah. Huh. Yeah. And all of that in answer to telling you a little bit more about the studio. What have I missed, folks? I mean, if you came into the studio, the spiel typically, we'd say welcome. We'd let you know that we're a place where everyone can come to make and share art for free, including the art that is ourselves. We ask people, as long as they're there, to be respectful of our safe space policy, which for me is about accountability, not so much the idea of safety, because safety means a different thing to everyone. But we ask people to be supportive of one another, encouraging, respectful, negotiate consent. That's a big one. And I'm working on that as well, because I think we're hardwired to make assumptions about people based on what we observe. It's a shorthand to humaning that isn't a bad thing. It becomes an unhelpful thing if we don't check out our assumptions, right? So we ask people just to negotiate with one another, learn, ask. When in doubt, ask. And I think people are generally really, 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 really nice to other people. We see that at the studio all the time. So supportive of other people, so kind, so generous. And then we turn around and say horrible things about ourselves and about our own artwork, our own process. Sometimes it's joking, sometimes it's that, self-deprecating kind of thing. At other times, at least for me, it's not very kind, maybe veiled by humor, but not kind. And we call that the inner critic. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're like, oh yeah, the inner critic, a lot of, that's that part of you that isn't necessarily you, the voice that tries to tear you down or prevent you from doing something. There's so many different kinds of inner critics, and for me, I have a whole choir of them. I actually had some model magic on hand because I was going to explore making the inner critic. Maybe I will do that next Wednesday. How do you feel about that? Does anyone want to make an inner critic with me? We'll see. A little finger puppet. A finger puppet inner critic. Maybe? But yes, so the inner critics can be really loud. And if you, like me, you have a choir of them, if they all get going at the same time, that's the day you need to reach out for support. That's the day you need to shout out and say, oh my goodness, someone sing with me so I can sing a little louder. Or, you know what, if you're having trouble with the inner critic, this is actually in the spiel, just let us know. Ask someone else to come and help talk back to it. Learn about what it wants. And if it has nothing constructive to say at the studio, and I used to do this quite a bit, if it has nothing constructive to say, I will grab it and I will take it and I will throw it outside. You get to stay, but your critic, I will happily throw it out into the traffic on Simcoe Street South. And if you feel bad, if you're worried about it, being thrown into the road, don't worry. They're tough. It'll be back. And maybe the next time it comes back, you'll have a slightly different relationship with it. But we can help with that. And we can do the same thing here, right? I have a choir. Annie has a shoulder committee, one on each shoulder. I love it. And Sean says, what if the inner critic is a form of resistance to what our art has to tell us? Oh, this is interesting. Okay. So what if the inner critic is a form of resistance to what our art has to tell us? So a little more clarification around this, Sean. Perhaps is it that the inner critic is, do you mean inner critic as block? Inner critic as you're not ready for this, or I don't want you to know this right now, this is too much? Or inner critic, to expressing ourselves as freely as we want to? Because I do think that inner critic voice, there's a lot of good thought around this. In other places, it might be called different things. It could be negative self-talk. It could be, there's lots of different names for it. But I do think sometimes the inner critic has something that's important or useful for us to know, right? That's why the finger puppet exercise I found really helpful for myself anyways. Sometimes inner critics are old coping mechanisms. right? Things that helped us in other parts of our lives, that things that became habits, ways of moving through the world, ways of presenting ourselves. And so at a time, it might have actually helped us feel safer, helped us feel like we had some kind of extra protection. One of the things my inner critic taught me to do really, really well, and this is, again, inner critic, this is an idea, it's a concept. I want to be respectful for folks who have, like, there's other voices that people can have internally, and I want to be very respectful to that process as well, because this is a slightly different thing. But I want to be respectful to those individuals out there as well, that I'm not trying to make light of this at all. But for example, it's one way that I make sense of kind of the things I've absorbed, the truths that aren't truths anymore, the way of moving through the world that I know that is no longer helpful for me. So I used to have, and I still do from time to time, a habit of walking into a room of new people and kind of announcing all my flaws. It might sound strange, but those of you, I'm sure there's some people who can relate. Yeah, and I have many inner critics as well, Shelley. The person who, I will say them, I will identify them before anyone else can. So when I walk into this room, I'm going to make a whole bunch of jokes that aren't funny and kind of get it out of the way, so people don't have to, in my mind, that I don't have to worry about people thinking those things about me. I'll just say them right away. Now, that comes from a very specific critic in my life, who at one time was really trying to help me become more at ease with things, right? Help me find a kind of comfort with things I was not always comfortable with. But at a certain point in time, that just becomes, it's not helpful anymore, because I had developed other tools, other ways of moving through the world, other ways of coping, other ways of being comfortable with who I was and who I am today. But every once in a while, that little critic will pop up. And in artwork, often it will present itself. It happens kind of through that internal dialogue I might be having with myself, self-editing, self-censoring, being afraid to share things with people, make art in front of people. That's a big one. And again, like when you're running an art hive, for me at least, it became very easy not to share my art, my creative process with people, because I was helping other people do it, right? So this process here has actually been really helpful for me in that way. Getting out of my head and learning how to manage the relationship with that particular inner critic a little bit more. But with regards to critics, perhaps, critics being concerned for you with the content of your art. From time to time we create things and we don't necessarily understand what they're about. We might look at them later on, or even in the process, and think, wow, this is intense. And I think sometimes, I know with other people, oftentimes it happens with people looking at other people's art that they're creating, and the concern they have of, when they look at someone else's art, they're scared. Oh, it's 3:34. Haha, we're going over today, folks, but I do want to carry on with this thought. Sometimes that, the idea that our own art will overwhelm us, that is something that, a concern, it's a legitimate concern, and oftentimes it's a concern that others have for the person who's making the art. If you're ever working on something that is scaring you, that is making you feel, that is, bringing up all kinds of struggles, I want to invite you to remember that it is art. You can take a break. You can walk away. You can ask someone to help witness you in that process. You can, close the sketchbook, put it on a shelf, do something different, make another piece of art to help shift you out of that place. But generally speaking, I think when it comes to the inner critic, I think there might be constructive things there, and you can listen. That's why you can check in to see what it's trying to tell you. So if you're feeling resistance as you're working on a piece of art, as I sometimes do, maybe that is a constructive note coming from that inner critic. Maybe it's a throwback to another time, a past time, But it's worthwhile saying, what do you want me to know about this moment? And if it says, I think this is really intense, take a break, or I think this is too much for you right now, or like those kind of notes are interesting to me from the inner critic. If the inner critic is saying, this is crap, well then, I will say, okay, you're there. I see, well, I know that you're there. And now I'd like you to sit down, point noted, not taken, but it's noted. Now go away. Because those kind of voices aren't necessarily helpful. And I tend to think when we're creating our work, yes, there'll be things that are very scary and very intense. But if you're listening to yourself and allowing yourself to recognize what you're feeling as you're creating, remember that you can take care of yourself along the way. There's nothing saying that you have to move forward with something if you're feeling uncomfortable. And yes, so Sean's saying, I hear many artists compare themselves to others when their art is unique and as beautiful as they are. Yeah, absolutely. I think if we spend our time trying to create what in the way that others create, or create what they create, how they create it, we never give ourselves room to discover what our voice is, what our creative voice is, who we are as artists, whatever modality you choose to create with. So again, like having a relationship with your inner critics that you can manage, that you can feel comfortable talking back to them, that or at least challenging them in some way. That's a really important thing, because the thing that you create today that you might think is ugly, a week or 2 weeks from now, 5 minutes from now, might be extraordinarily beautiful, seen with fresh eyes, or when your mood has shifted, or when you've just taken a break to relax and, step away. Depending on, each one of us has our own story. We've had our own journey leading up to this point. There's lots of things that get in the way of our flow and our creative practice. That's a part of it, right? Again, it's not always easy. It doesn't mean that it's not good. Yeah. Wow, there's a lot. And I only got into the little bit of the spiel. There's more spiel. I can pick up with that part of the spiel perhaps next week, about safety as far as welcoming people. They're asking if people have been drinking or using to come back to the studio on another day when they haven't been. No judgment attached to that, just for the sake of communication and being able to communicate with one another clearly. And the same could be said for mental health. If someone's having a really difficult day and the process of creating isn't helping them shift that, helping them find relief in some way, it might be a signal to reach out for other supports that can help them find relief or move forward in some way. The last piece of safe space, at least in our art hive, is we ask everyone to let us know if anything makes them feel uncomfortable. Don't marginalize your own feelings. Let us know. And the more specific you can be, the better. And we learn how to reconnect with that part of ourselves that might have been pushed down. So don't feel like you got to suck it up. Don't worry about being a snitch. Don't worry about being a drama queen. All of those things. Let us know. Let someone know. And we can talk about it and teach one another how we can be more supportive of one another on this creative journey called life. And Carlos, let's see. So that comment from Sean, let's see, Sean, I think there's even a power in having this conversation about inner critics. Yeah, it may sound odd, but for me, that makes the critic feel heard, but not valid. And it sometimes gets quieter as a result. Yes, right? It's, the critic plays a role, and I think it's unrealistic to just imagine getting rid of it, or sometimes, it's like when you're having a really rough day and someone says to you, well, just calm down. No, I don't know any one person where that has ever helped, myself included. So I think it's a similar relationship with our own inner critics, with those voices, learning to talk with them, to dialogue with them. And it helps perhaps prepare us for those, the voices we encounter with one another in reality. If we learn to talk back to those, those inner critics that are within us, then perhaps we can learn how to talk back to them in the real world as well. And then Carlos follows up on Sean's comment, which allows me to step back from it. Yes, so that makes the critic feel heard but not valid, and it sometimes gets quieter as a result. Over to Carlos, which allows me to step back from it, the inner critic. But I appreciate the honesty and what you've shared here. Yeah, it helps a lot, and I hope it's helping you too. So, oh no, Carlos was talking to Sean there. There we go. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. Carlos, I think you encapsulated that idea, the concept of dialoguing with that critic perfectly. It's practice, right? We practice the things that we haven't had opportunities to do in any other area of our life, and in the studio, in the art hive, making art with one another is a really, or even on our own, is a really excellent way, an excellent opportunity to practice those things, which is why giving ourselves permission to connect and create in this way is so important. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here with me today and for watching me move my art around and for listening. Oh, let's see. So Jay has a question, and I think I'll do my best to answer this question. And even though I know it's late, everybody, so I've had you here. For those of you who need to leave, who need to take a break, please feel free. It's almost 3:45. But Jay's question, does the studio have an idea for a possible reopening for the physical space again? I know there will have to be extensive changes and safety protocols in place. I'm just curious. I know I'd love to get back to the space again, and so would the kids. Yeah, having a space not in our home has helped all of us feel a bit more open to creation with less of a critic, if that makes sense. Yep. Getting out of your space and into a different, perhaps neutral or more supportive environment, or at least away from distractions of everyday life. One's everyday life can be super powerful, and that's another reason why art hives and places like the living room matter. But let's see, how do I answer this question? I don't know is one of the answers. I can't, right now, people's safety is number one concern. That's my number one concern. I personally, I need to know that people are safe. And I also want the quality of the experience of people coming together to be as close to what it was as possible. For there to be a sense of freedom and spontaneity and playfulness and overlap in that creative humaning. I haven't yet, and I'm not, not just me, but our board members, our volunteers, a lot of us, we've been really trying to think of ways to do this. We haven't found a way to open up the studio to the general public and have it be have the same quality of experience as we did and be safe at the same time. Yeah, and safety is absolutely number one. And I know we're all thinking about that right now, and I appreciate that so much, right? All the safety protocols that we would have to put in place would mean so many drastic changes to the space, and that includes everything from the number of people allowed in the space, the time people were allowed to spend in the space, mask wearing when our studio does not have air conditioning, the kind of materials people were allowed to use, and certainly allowed to share, because we can't sanitize a lot of things in the studio. Everything about placemaking and sort of that area of social practice arts and the art hive movement, I feel, has shifted in a very dramatic way. And I think no one quite knows exactly how to move forward right now. We're looking at it and we're examining ways to do it. But the studio opening up as it was, we know can't happen. If there is if a treatment becomes available that everyone can access, that is affordable for everyone to access, and that is like a successful treatment, then I can see us opening the studio again. If there's a vaccine, absolutely. But I don't know how far away, I don't know how close that is, and it might be far away. So there are a couple of different things we're looking at, and what I might do is, once we have a better idea of what's coming up, I'll have another meeting, maybe a town hall, an art hive hall meeting, and we can all gather here today and ask questions, and I can share some of what we're hoping or planning to do. For now, we have a little bit of time. We've applied for the rent reduction from the government, so if we're approved, it gives us a little bit more time to think about how things might change with regards to the studio. Yeah, we don't know exactly. What I do know is that the LivingRoom project is not going anywhere. That is here. It might change, it might grow. If we have to close the studio space, it will be because we're redirecting the funds we've raised to support it to other ways of working with community and engaging. And we will continue to look for ways to engage with people. And yeah, this is a difficult thing to answer, and I don't have all the answers. Obviously, a lot of things have gone on hold for us right now, like fundraising. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not placing blame on anything. It was a choice we made to not hold our annual fundraiser. We made a choice to sort of step back and allow other things to take focus, and to not insert ourselves into kind of cultural conversations where it just didn't feel appropriate. It didn't feel right to do that. And it doesn't feel right to fundraise in the same way when the community isn't using the studio in the same way. But I'm also beginning to recognize that the community serves and works with people in many different ways, not just that way. So again, we'll be coming back and connecting with you folks and letting you know what you can do to help support the space. We do have a Canada Helps page if anyone feels like donating. That is always welcome. But we're getting creative. It could be that this is an opportunity to change and shake things up in a really positive way, in a really exciting way, and do things within the Art Hive movement that haven't been done before. And that kind of thing makes me excited. So I've got a couple of ideas bubbling away in the back of my brain pot that, I can't wait to share with you folks. And we do, on a last note, so I know that doesn't answer your question exactly, but I know some folks in the community have been asking, and there's been some people, I guess so there's rumors all over the place. Some people say we're opening up again soon, and then I heard someone else was saying that we're closing, and I know we're not opening anytime soon. That's what I can say. And closing the studio at 149 might be something that has to happen. But we won't do it lightly, and we will let you know every step of the way, because I don't want it to be something that, Shelley, that's like a great idea. There's lots of other things, like create community, art studio kits that we can share with people, or sell online even. Let's see, am I still here? My screen just went blank again. Technology. There's lots of different ways. Is that live video still happening? Am I still live streaming, folks? I don't even know. Let's see. Am I still live streaming over here? I am. Whether or not it's happening online, I don't know. The studio will continue. One way or another, it will be happening. Let me just check in with my tech guy again. Am I still streaming? So, yes. I'll keep you posted. I don't want the studio to just disappear all of a sudden. That would be an enormous drag. And if we do have to change things in a really big way, I want it to be a celebration. I want people to be involved. I want to honor the journey that we've been on so far and everyone who has helped make it what it is. So I will be letting you know if and when that is happening. But for now, I'll keep you posted. Also, we do have a community arts project coming up soon that we'll be launching with Danny Crosby, so there'll be new ways to engage and participate in this kind of creative space, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, I'm not even sure if I'm still streaming anymore. Oh, good. Anthony says I am, so that's good. I just can't see the chat all of a sudden, guys, so I can't see your questions. Yeah, exciting stuff is happening. There might also be heartbreaking stuff happening, but the heart that breaks will repair itself. And, you know, I'm so lucky to have everyone who is a part of this project and everyone who's joined us. New friends, new faces, new guests, new voices as well. It gives me hope. I know that, yeah, whatever happens, it will be just as interesting. It might be different, but it'll be just as interesting. Guys, folks, trying to stop saying guys. Folks, thank you so much for joining me today. Jay, thanks for asking the hard questions. You guys, you can ask me questions. Folks, people, lovely friends, community, neighbors, you can ask me questions whenever you want on these chats. I may not always be able to answer them in the way that you'd hoped or the way that I hoped, but yeah. I thank you for asking the questions, the hard questions too. Yeah, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening to an extended and being a part of an extended Art Hive. You're awesome. I guess that's all I wanted to say. Again, we're back for another live stream. There's a few live stream things that happen. This Friday, our students have a lovely coffee catch-up group for 9 a.m. every Friday in a messenger room here, so you can join a group on the Facebook page, and that gives you a chance to check in and see one another in person. It's kind of Facebook's version of Zoom. So it just gives us a lovely opportunity to connect in person and chat and see one another's faces. That's 9 a.m. every Friday. Then I'm back next Tuesday on Instagram for a live stream chat with Emily Brusgard, who's an extraordinary creator in the community and a professor at Trent University. We're going to be talking about lots of interesting stuff. Look for that event coming your way soon. And of course, next Wednesday, I'll be right back right here creating with you, having these amazing conversations. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for being a part of it today. I appreciate you. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Guys, so hard to, language, right? Creative expression, expressive dialogue, Thank you. Thank you for being here. I look forward to connecting again with you, because until we can connect and create with one another in person, I look forward to creating and connecting with you right here, online, in all the virtual ways. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your Wednesday, or whatever day you happen to be watching this. Thank you. I appreciate you. That's all. Bye, everybody.